Okay, hi everyone. So I'm Smithy Q, and I'm back now with the third installment of our opening principles slash opening trap series, where we're going to take a look at some of the most common opening traps and then use opening principles to justify them, and more importantly, learn how to disarm them without needing to memorize a whole bunch of theory. Today we're going to be looking at the Englund Gambit, which is somewhat unique in compared to the other videos in this series because, well, with the other ones, there's a chess reason for why they work. That is, you can point to a lead in time, a lead in development, maybe one side is making unnecessary pawn moves. You go, aha, that's the chess reason for why it's working. Whereas in the Englund Gambit, there's no good reason for why it works. There's no chess reason. Rather, it appears to be psychologically motivated. For example, in this position after bishop c5, this is the start of one of the most common series, and where black is going to pre-move the next two moves. He plays d6, and then as soon as you take, he pre-moves knight e7. And because it's a pre-move, you're thinking, ho 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 ho, he did a silly move, he didn't mean to do that, I'm able to win a piece. And then that's when black is able to start cackling because he can play bishop takes f2. And then he takes the queen, and black's winning the game, and he's sitting there laughing. And you're sitting there thinking that chess is so unfair because black has played 4 terrible moves in a row and is yet winning by move 6. Now, a couple things. First, I hope that this trap doesn't come as a surprise, because this is now the third time in this series that we have seen this sort of d6 tempting white to take the pawn, and then there's going to be a follow-up tactic involving some sort of sacrifice, which then loses the queen. We saw it in the Tennyson Gambit, we saw it in the Horowitz variation, and we're seeing it again here. And so the more that you can internalize these sorts of patterns, you're not just going to memorize one trap and that's it. Rather, you're able to see the overall theme, and that applies to many different positions. So that's why it's, again, incredibly useful to learn the various themes as opposed to just memorizing concrete lines. And then further, again, if we look at this position, again, let me show the stats. Basically, there's one losing move, and that's to essentially get greedy and to take. Now, this database is not showing the bullet games. Maybe I can do that. If you look at bullet games, this suddenly becomes the top played move. Why? Again, because it's a psychological thing. It's involving those pre-moves. Where if you have time to think, you're going to realize the opening is about developing, not just grabbing as much material as possible, and hey, this looks really, really fishy. Aha, there's that tactic. Let's not do that. And again, if you were to make us develop a piece, well, now black's going to have to take. And if you look at this position through the lens of opening principles, we're going to realize white has 2 pieces developed, black has 2 pieces developed. It's white to move, though, and so we can keep developing, or we can bring one of our pawns out. We can then castle in either direction. We have no weaknesses. We're doing great, whereas black is simply down a pawn for absolutely nothing. White's doing very well. White is probably close to winning objectively, and I think if you look at the stats, they back that up. White's score is absolutely tremendous if he doesn't fall for the trap. So this is what I mean. There's no chess reason for why this trap works. It's only pure greed. It's sort of the psychology behind it, the showman's touch of doing those pre-moves that induces the error. There's nothing good about this opening. And I think we can see that even more clearly in the classic trap, sort of the main historical line, where it starts with knight c6, and then queen e7. So black is attacking the pawn twice. White defends it. Black is now attacking everything with the queen. But that's okay. We can go back, and then we take. And this is the big position. And let's start with not the trap. Basically, anything else. And so, black is attacking the rook. How do we defend it? There's 2 ways. We can either develop a brand new piece, allowing the queen to come in here. We have 3 pieces developed. to black's 2. One of them is the queen, which has now made 3 moves, and it's soon going to be chased by rook goes to b1. Material is completely even. White is now threatening, after rook b1, to do some combination of knight b5 or d5, and then cash in on c7 with a huge fork. So black's king is actually in a little bit of danger. White will then play e3, e4, bring the bishop out, castle, and everything will be absolutely fine. And there's nothing otherwise good in black's position. If you look at it objectively, that is through the computer evaluation or through grandmaster games, if any grandmasters actually, let's actually find out. Let's look at the stats. If you look at the stats here on Lichess, white wins enormously. If you look at the Masters database, it looks like 10 games. Yeah. Absolutely huge white score. And so again, this is where I'm trying to say there's nothing good about black's position. And rather, it's the fact that for some reason knight c3 is somewhat invisible. Because it looks like bishop goes to c3 is attacking the queen, it wins time, it's protecting our rook. But we can see here this falls for the trap. Now I'm actually curious about this. Bishop c3 is only played 23% of the time. Does that change with bullet? Actually, it's even worse. So I actually don't understand this. I understand this trap even less. Because knight c3 developing a piece, it makes sense. It's following the principles. It's absolutely perfect, and apparently it's the most intuitive move. But for any reason, if somehow you can induce white to play the much worse bishop c3, the trap is sprung with bishop goes to b4. It's actually pinning, so you can't take because there's the pin. Black is threatening to take, and after queen goes to d2, we're able to go take, and then amazingly that's checkmate. So again, this is a really weird trap. There's this one very specific tactical justification behind black's play if white blunders into it. Almost anything else throughout here is better. And the Englund Gambit is kind of filled with this sort of thing, where there's nothing good about it, and these small little tactics are able to creep in sometimes. And it's for this exact reason that I would like to suggest don't hang on to this pawn. Just do your developing. That is, we know the opening principles say develop as fast as possible. The opening isn't about winning material hanging on to pawns. So just look at this. We can keep developing knight f3. Okay, sorry, it's black to move. And if he tries this whole queen e7 idea, just develop. Okay, he can win the pawn. You can play e4. And now, just look at this. Here, let's show those stats again. If you look at them, every black move is bad. None of them. White is scoring nearly 60%, which is huge for online blitz. Let's look at the most common move. Bishop takes f3. Sorry, knight takes f3. We've got a wonderful choice. Don't play king e2, but even then you have a 50 chance of winning, apparently. You can take with the queen. You can take with the pawn. Let's take with the queen. And look at this. You can develop. You can castle in either direction. You have 2 pieces develop to black's, well, nothing. He only has the queen out. You're doing exceptional. You're winning a lot of games. You're not up material, but you don't need to be up material. You've got a great game. And this works, beyond just this. Let's say he doesn't play the queen e7. Let's say he tries to play the d6 line. Nope, you can just play e4 if you really want to. Or even better, we know we want to develop with tempo. Bishop g5 hits the queen. If he plays f6, the most common move, that's fine. We're able to take it. And now look, that bishop is stuck behind his pawn. Ooh. If he blocks the bishop, good. You can take it. And now, again, there's no worries about that bishop coming to d6. There's no traps. Is he going to play something silly like queen goes to d7? Yuck. Just don't... The only thing you need to make sure in a position like this is that you protect your queen, somewhat quickly. No, even here, I don't even think there is a trap for black. You're just doing fantastic by developing with tempo and not worrying about hanging on to your pawn. And even here, you're actually still up a pawn. In so many of these openings, it's trying to hang on to the material at all costs that allows the tactical tricks, and we're able to just ignore that by developing simply. So that's that. Hopefully we can see how this is a really terrible opening. But that's something, if you're playing online chess, especially if you're playing Blitz, you're playing Bullet, it's these sort of psychological ploys. You need to be aware of them. And it's really useful to know that if you follow opening principles, just develop as fast as possible, you're able to disarm so many of these traps. So that's going to be it for this one. Like and subscribe if that was useful. Comments, criticisms, all that, always great. Otherwise, that's it. So thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.